Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Fiona.
Hello. Hi, Robbie. Nice to meet you.
Are you ready for my very serious and tough question?
Go for it.
What is the craziest dream you have ever had?
Oh, wow. Craziest dream. Oh, I've had some crazy ones. Oh, in fact, yeah, I can tell you. It was when I was little. I had a dream. When I was little, I had an imaginary football team as friends instead of an imaginary friend. I have a whole team. And so meant several years later, when I was a teenager, I had a dream where there was somebody chasing me. It got really, really scared, and I ran into a graveyard, and there was a huge, huge tomb. And I looked, and it said on the thing, "Your imaginary football team are buried here." And I said, "Please, please come out and help me." They did. This imaginary football team from when I was about 4 or 5, came up in the dream. They said, "We can't do this more than once, you know." And they actually beat up this monster and went back into their tomb again.
That is the best plot to a movie I have ever heard. Oh my
It was
God.
pretty wild.
What, were they zombies?
No, they were just like, they were ghosts, I guess. But they were the actual. I'd forgotten all about these imaginary friends I'd had. You know, I used to put plates of grass out and stuff for them when I was tiny. But yeah, weird.
I would love to see a movie where it's like, where do like a place or like a plane of existence where our imaginary friends go when we stop believing in them. Like the movie Happy or the TV show Happy that's on Netflix, where the guys like they had the rehab facility for all the little like imaginary creatures. Like, my kids don't believe in me anymore. It's like, but where do they go? Because they were a big part of my life, how I got through a lot of things. I don't
Absolutely.
my
There's a Drop Dead Fred. It's a good movie. I mean, from years ago. It's a bit silly but fun.
I don't think my dream is that insane. I just had a dream where like I had no strength, like nothing. Like I have the same body, but when I went to go punch something like to defend myself, it was like I was punching a pillow, like it wasn't hurting anything. And I'm like, this is what happens when you fight Mike Tyson. You don't even land a hit. And then like it was just this, like, even trying to run away, I was not moving. I was just running, but I wasn't moving. I was trying my hardest. And I was like, what does this mean? It probably has some deep meaning behind it, or I probably shouldn't drink screwball before I go to bed. So
No, that's cool. That is very cool. I'm sure it's, yeah, your subconscious telling you all sorts of stuff about your inner self,
I wish it
fears
could tell me
maybe.
the Powerball numbers. That would be pretty amazing.
It'd be cool, wouldn't
But then
it?
someone just comes out like, it doesn't work that way. I'm like, well, why doesn't it work that way? Why is it possible for us to be able to create a Reese's peanut butter cup coffee, but I can't have a dream about the Powerball numbers? That is science that is so mystical to me. That Reese's peanut butter cup thing actually has intention into it, because I went into a gas station called Royal Farms down here in the US,
Mm.
and I walked in and I see all these flavors of coffee. I'm like, whatever happened to just regular coffee? Like, my grandfather drank it black with like a little bit of Splenda in it, and that's how I
Mm.
started to drink it. But then you're looking at the flavors, you're like, Oreo? And then you keep on going. It's like, then you turn into like Starbucks, where they just toss a bag of chocolate chips in there and they call it a Java chip.
It's a dessert, really, isn't it, rather than a coffee?
And you're not getting a coffee, you're getting a milkshake that tastes with a hint of coffee at the end. It's like you just
Yeah.
basically went to Dairy Queen, but it's called Starbucks.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I mean, I always think, when I see American films, I think of those kind of, you're kind of you have all those sort of refill coffees and stuff like that, and just jugs of it. I would imagine you get pretty good coffees there.
You can't do that at Starbucks. So, like, there's no free refills at Starbucks. Like, I was
Uh-huh.
wondering, I was like, oh, you sit here all day with your laptop acting like you're working on something because you're getting free coffee. Like, no, we don't get free coffee. I just enjoy the environment here. I'm like, you enjoy the Starbucks environment? Like, to me, that's baffling, because every time I've went in there has been a severely bad experience.
Yeah.
It's I like coffee, I guess. I mean, I drink a pot when I'm home, but I much rather have coffee at home because I like the warmness. It's really comforting when I drink it. I'm like, oh, it's warming my insides because I'm like naturally just like 20 degrees colder than everybody. And
So you don't.
that's an actual fact too. We have the thermometers at work, and
Uh-huh.
I scanned my hand, 75. Then I scanned
Oh,
my fingertips, 62.
are you a vampire? Or
No, I just have low iron levels, so I don't heat up fast. And everyone's like, "It's
okay.
so hot in here." I'm like, "I'm putting a jacket on. Like it's cold." I don't know. I get weird sometimes when I get cold. I'm sorry. It's also cold in my house. For some reason, I forgot to turn off the AC before I walked in my studio.
Right. Okay. Oh, yeah. It's not. Yeah. It's getting towards winter. You're allowed to feel cold.
There's just a shift where it's like, here's November, and then it dropped like 30 degrees in a day, and everyone's like, I wasn't ready. And I was like, yeah, there was no like dipping your toes in it. It just straight up, hey, here's winter. And then like it's snowing outside. You're like, is global warming a myth still? And I'm like, I don't know. From what I've seen on the TV, apparently polar bears are doing pretty good.
They're just still going to move to your area. That's all.
Well, Fiona, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, like the audio drama, for instance?
Yeah, I've been involved in audio drama actually a frighteningly long time, about 14 years now. It was literally kind of in its infancy as podcasting when I came across it, and it's been. I mean, it's incredible because literally the first UK audio drama meetup we had. I mean, there were several of us, but just two of us made it, But now there are, oh God, thousands and thousands of audio drama podcasts. And so it's just this huge, huge, huge blossoming um, community. And it's wonderful, actually. I've been
What
very lucky.
do you really love about it? Because like I'm an impression man myself. I love impressions. I love doing
Mhm.
voices and stuff. But I also like the idea of it is a lot like LARPing. It's like live
Yeah.
action role play, but you get to do it behind a microphone and you get to play like it's basically acting. And
Mm.
I really enjoy that aspect of things because I feel like a lot of the stigma that's behind LARPing is people are too afraid of acting crazy because of how it gets shown in like movies and stuff as like a nerd thing. But I'm like, Dungeons and Dragons made a huge comeback. And like that's now an audio drama a lot of people do. And it's like it's fun to do voices. It's fun to escape from who you are and just put yourself into something and go as insane as you want to go.
Absolutely. And actually, that is something that has come up that now although I tend to stick to audio drama because I tend to prefer scripted stuff myself, because then I can work on it and I don't have to be put on the spot. But there is more generally, we call it audio fiction, because then we're including all of those people who are improvising, who are doing role play games and that kind of stuff. And that's just as popular and valid a thing to do, which is really cool in podcasting.
Well, explain to me a
Do
little.
it.
Well, explain to me a little bit about your show. Like, spin me a yarn of one of the tales you might tell.
Basically, my tales are they're kind of real life where something goes odd. And I'd say supernatural, but it's not always ghosts. It's sometimes kind of time slips or doppelgangers or odd mythical things that are brought into someone's reality, and the person who is in it, I tend to focus on people who've kind of fallen through the cracks a bit in society here. So they're kind of struggling. They're either going to be made redundant, or they're struggling financially, and something really weird happens in their life that then basically they have to rearrange everything to get back to some form of normality or die. But
Kind of
it's kind of,
like COVID, throwing everybody through a spiral when are
yeah,
not ready for it.
absolutely. Well, that's something that I'm working on at the moment, is something where a benefactor, millionaire, has given everyone the chance to have a golden ticket to this island to do a retreat, an artistic retreat. But then the people who are invited start to wonder about what the motives are, and there's something a bit odd going
fight
on.
to the death.
That's it. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That kind of thing.
That was my idea about having kids. I was like, imagine if like for 3 years I just went on like this bang spree, I would say, where I was just 20 different girls every year and just get them all like to have kids or whatever. But then I would move to an island and wait 18 years and start up a Mortal Kombat ring. So then all these kids were coming to the island to meet their dad and they'd have to fight for my love. It was a joke idea, but like people took it serious. I was like, it would be a good script for a movie, like for sure.
I've seen, yeah. Have you ever seen Old Boy, the
No.
Korean film? It's yeah, it's pretty cool. There's sort of elements there that, and you could also oh god, what's the other name of the film about children fighting on an island? It's like predates
Animal Farm. No, wait. Lord of the Flies.
not that one. There's one, again, it's a Japanese film this time. It's an Asian film that I can't remember. Port, I was going to say Port Royale, but it
Horton
might be.
Hears a Who.
I'll remember it anyway at some point. But yeah, there are a couple of films that actually kind of have elements of that in. So yeah, you could be onto something there.
Do you play any of the characters, like voices? Like what voices do you feel like are in your range?
That's a good question. Actually, I was talking about this with a friend the other day. There are like levels of comfort. So my natural kind of voice, well, originally I'm from South London, so it's that kind of a accent like that. But then I can also sort of posh it up, which I tend to for my formal work, into more sort of closer to an RP sound. And both of those come sort of very naturally. But there's kind of some accents where I lived in Wales for a while, for several years actually, and worked there. And so some Welsh accents, I've done audiobooks where there have been Welsh characters all the way through, and it's been set in Wales. But so there's kind of like different levels of comfort, you know, and I kind of base it like I can narrate in this many accents, and then I can do main characters in this many accents. And then there might be a few accents on the brink where you're kind of like, well, I can do a couple of lines here, but I couldn't do a full kind of main character because I literally study them, you know, beforehand, and listen to, you know, football podcasts, that kind of thing. When I was doing one set in Swansea, I listened to a Swansea football team podcast because it had so many voices from that area to kind of get tuned to it. So it doesn't come naturally. I'm not a natural, you know, kind of put on voices kind of person. I literally study them.
When we're saying study, though, you're just talking about the mannerisms, the ways that some words can kind of get warped around, because it seems like even if we're talking about, like, if we look at the US, even though it's one country, it speaks English. English is completely different depending on where you're located on the East Coast, the West Coast, you're the South. There's these different things, but they all have different mannerisms. Like being, like I've mentioned a couple of times now, the fact that, like, I'm from Baltimore. So when I start, well, I live in Ocean City, but my family's from Baltimore. So that's really close to us. So if you're in Maryland, you're basically chalked in with Baltimore. So whenever I go, like, what are you talking about? People are like, what are you saying? Talking. Talking, and it's like some of my words get mixed up, and it's like, it's not that I'm trying to, or I'm from Boston or something. It's more like that's just how people here talk, and I didn't notice it was an accent until I started meeting people from all around. I was like, you guys talk weird. Like, no, you talk weird. I'm like, oh, I'm not home. This isn't normal. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think there are, I mean, it literally, you can write it all out, the different sounds for each thing, and it's where you put your tongue in your mouth and that kind of thing. And it's also the kind of the music of it as well, the rhythm of an accent and a voice. And I think when you are around people who speak the same accent as you, like you say, you kind of, it feels so normal because it is your natural musicality that you're born into. But
Well, being from the UK, do you think it's weird that the fact that anytime we think of one that's proper or one that's like intelligent or something like that, we use UK for our documentaries? Like that, like for Americans, that's that's the intelligent language. For you, does it just like that's normal?
yeah, and it would, and I think also there's within that, it's also the regionalism of it as well, because I would imagine that the one that you would use for documentaries would be the very Southern English kind of almost RP kind of sound, which
Yeah.
is terribly, David Attenborough kind of thing. Whereas in fact, obviously in the UK, just like in the US, we have massive range of accents, but until quite recently, for example, the BBC used to use quite posh, it's a BBC English, it's literally BBC accent. Nowadays, it does use many more regional accents. And so I think it becomes more acceptable then, which is great. I think it's wonderful when you have lots of variety of accent around.
I think my favorite one would probably be Irish. I've said it so much. I like the whimsical of it. And I also like a hard, like, I like Baltimore accent. When I hear somebody talk, I'm like, it's just so comforting to me. You know what I mean? I think the ones I really can't stand are probably, I really do love accents. I'm more of an impression guy, if I have to admit that to myself. I love doing impressions of stuff. But like, I don't know. I think it's really hard for me to get down with the Texas accent. It's just a lot of times it is really stereotypical, and I'm like, like I just can't. It seems like I already immediately want you to pop back on your horse and go, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like there are those types where it's like he talks with the Southern and he sounds like he's got a bit of a piece of grain at the tip of his mouth. Like when I hear Bill Engvall talk, where he's like, if you don't know what you're doing with math homework, you might be a redneck. I'm like, God, man, is that, are you glorifying that? Are you, some people, they put on an act, you know what I mean? Where it's like, they go with it. Like, there's a radio host down here in my town who's from Boston, and he's been living here for 30, 40 something years. So when I hear his Boston leak out in his radio thing, he does it on purpose. Like where I say talking, he goes talk, and he gets like, you could tell he slows the jaw. And I'm like, you're making your words drag out because you think people love that accent, and a lot of people don't.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it kind of bleeds into people's characters because of stereotypes based on accent.
Yeah, you don't fight a Scottish person at all. They will kill you.
Yeah, and no, exactly. Those are the sort of stereotypes that come in, and it's sort of stereotypes that you do actually work with quite a bit. I mean, that's what I find with work, that very often an accent that is asked for, especially by American clients, does tend to be that kind of BBC British accent. And so I'm very lucky that it's very close to my own. And so it's like quite a quick and easy one to do. But I do think, people do get discriminated against because of their accent, which is,
well, it's crazy because you've probably come across, like, looking at some accents or something that might be stereotypical. Like someone says, can you do a Texan for me? You're like, yeah, I can do a Texan. You know, you do the stereotypical one. Then you go down there and you're like, oh my God, like that's not what they sound like at all. Like, how am I gonna, you probably, like, through some of your work, you've been reading, like, I need to do an accent from this place, would best fit this role. And then you're reading it and then you're listening to it and you're like, it doesn't sound like anything like I thought they would sound like.
exactly. I took on, it was a dialect of Irish that I tried for the audition. I actually passed the audition.
Let me hear
And
it.
then
Come
when
on.
oh God, oh my God. Now this is one of the ones that is not in my natural, thing. So it's one that I literally had to go through line by line. But I suppose it'd be possible to do a little bit of it.
That is perfect.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh no, you see, I'll get into Welsh then. You see, this is why I can't sustain that particular accent. But yeah, I was trying to do kind of Derry, and that was probably awful. And I apologise to anyone listening from Derry for absolutely killing that accent. But no, but I literally had to go through line by line. But the one that I'd done for my audition was so out because I was remembering my episode of Derry Girls and trying to do it from memory. But you're right, and and I had to go back and really study it
What
to
would you
get
say
those
is
ones.
one that's in your wheelhouse that you could do for me?
Um, well, I hope that I can do Welsh because I I tend to do quite a lot of books in Welsh. I have done. I had a wonderful series called Granny Smith, and Granny Smith is 80-year-old who doesn't take any nonsense. And I'm doing a terrible job now because I'm not in it. You
It
know, I would
sounded good to
normally.
me. It's difficult because like whenever like for me being in America, when I hear an accent like that, you guys say Welsh and you guys say like, whatever region of UK that you're in, to us that just sounds like the British, that's the British accent. So it's like it's weird that you can pick up on those distinctions, and that's because you're from there. Like some people say, "Oh, that's an East Coast accent." I'm like, "No, that's specifically Jersey, what that person's talking about. They're not talking about Maryland. They're not talking about New York. So when they say East Coast, that's because they're not too familiar with the distinctions of it."
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, and it's similar. I mean, I can tell with American accents, where roughly whether it's East Coast, West Coast, or some accents, like you said before with Texan. But it's much harder to get the nuance when you're coming at it completely separately from a distance.
Where do you find like in your like us in the mouth area? Where do you find that you have to change the most? I know you're saying the tongue a little bit, but I feel like sometimes I
Yeah.
have to lunge my jaw forward. Like if I
Uh-huh.
do a Don Corleone impression, I don't know if you ever seen The Godfather. He's like,
Uh-huh.
one
Yeah, yeah.
day, and that day may never come. I'm calling you for your services. Like I have to move the whole John, like the jaw forward, and the same thing with John Lennon. If I do a John Lennon, I got to move the jaw forward. But then, like if I'm doing a Christopher Walken, I have to
Uh-huh.
open up like my cheeks. So it's like this weird thing where I'm like, it's like if the people that used to be able to cup their hands and then blow in it and make like a bird call, you
Mhm.
had to keep trying and find where your thumb would fit perfectly to be able to get that noise. And then like as soon as you kept doing it and doing it and doing it and practicing at it, your hands would just form to do that automatically instead of the first time where you're sitting there like for an hour doing sign language and stuff trying to figure out how to get your hands to make that noise.
Absolutely. Can you do a Christopher Walken?
Oh God. Oh my, this is tragic news. Wasn't planning on doing my walking today, but I guess a walk to a brighter future.
Fantastic.
It's like the only one I'm pretty sure I've got nailed down. I used to be able to do like if I practiced at it like an Owen Wilson or a Jerry Seinfeld, but I don't like Jerry Seinfeld because
No.
his voice is just whiny. That's all it is. It's like, I mean, come on. It's like, oh, please, no.
I am a big fan of Seinfeld's way not him specifically himself, but the series is beautifully
My
written.
buddy is a big he owns a podcast about all about retro movies and stuff, and he's got another one that deals all on Seinfeld, and I'm like, dude, I can't do it. I don't know what it is, but I love doing impressions and I love trying to keep them in the public. Like when I go out into the world, I love trying to disguise my voice from what it actually is. Honestly, it's got me thinking of this theory that all the prank calls you used to get like all the time back in the day, like star 69, it would be like a restricted number. I think they were like potential voice actors. They were people that were really trying to have fun because I mean, honestly, we should hire more voice actors to do service calls, to do things where it's like you're dealing with being on the phone with somebody. Make it fun, make it entertaining, and maybe people wouldn't want to hate their life every time they got to call one.
This is true. Yeah. Yeah. Just have sort of service calls to Tom Baker explaining that you needed to pay more,
Or like a good
of your bills.
Barack Obama or JFK,
Mm,
like my fellow
mm.
Americans, you are calling Dish Cable. Will it not be on today? And then just keep going with it. I'm like, yes, let me talk to that. Let me get that, where you always get the call where it's like, thank you for calling, we're gonna put you on a hold, and then you're on hold for an hour. Give me a voice impression of Barack Obama to talk to, like, my fellow Americans, we are gathered here today to try and fix your internet connection. Thank you. I'm having way more fun, and I'm not going to scream and yell when someone actually does pick up. I'm just saying.
Brilliant. That's a great idea.
Come on, you got to have an impression for me.
An
There's not
impression.
one person out there that you're like, I can do a killer Anne Hathaway, or I can do a killer, I don't know. You could toss out Bill Cosby. I'd be interested.
Goodness. I don't think I can. I'm not really. It's weird, isn't it? Because my friend Sarah is exactly like that. She can do just immediate impressions, immediate accents, immediate. And I've never been that kind. It's quite boring, really, isn't it? But
Well,
I've never been that kind.
your voice is so soft and soothing. It's something that you would
Thank
get
you.
if you're going to read a book and you're going to turn it into a tape. You know what I mean? Which is like really, really good, because I bought an audio tape a long time ago to go to sleep. Something like to give you those, soothe you to sleep, like sounds of the ocean type stuff. But it was George Takei. So he goes, oh my, that was my Christopher Walken. That was messed up. See, you get stuck in something, and then next thing you know, you do a voice. But George Takei's like, oh God, I'm forgetting how he sounds now. I'm thinking Christopher Walken. Oh, no way. George Takei was amazing. And you will never know. Hang on. I'm going to think of how he talks. Wow, this is going to be a long one for the audience. Huh. Nope. I've lost it.
Oh,
And it's
he'd
gone
be
like
he'd be
that.
brilliant. I mean, you would laugh yourself to sleep. He'd be brilliant, wouldn't he? So entertaining.
I keep thinking Christopher Walken. See, that's what's difficult about like voice acting, is that to nail a certain accent, you could forget it. And then you got to remember, but then once you hear it, it triggers something in your brain, like a pathway that's been burned in. You know what I mean? Where it's like that part of your brain lights up again. And it's so interesting because how similar some voices are compared to others, how an accent can sound similar, but just replacing a few words changes the whole dialect.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just thinking, actually, I did once play Donna from Doctor Who. I don't know if you know.
Donna from Doctor
Um,
Who?
yeah, Catherine Tate.
Let me hear it.
So I could give it a go. Oh, Doctor, innit? You're all right, Doctor. Oh no, I can't even do that. Sorry, this is the absolute worst. I've got slight sinus things making excuses, but
It's
oh no,
amazing to me because it
it is
sounded like it.
awful.
It sounded
Yeah, it
like
was
it.
well off.
I haven't
Well
seen
off.
Doctor Who, so I don't know what to base it off of.
You haven't seen Doctor Who?
I haven't seen that, Dark Mirror, all these things where people are like, dude, whatever you're saying is just what's on Dark Mirror. I'm like, are they stealing my thoughts? Because these are just my thoughts.
Wow. Oh gosh, no. Oh, you should
I got
possibly
it.
try Doctor Who.
George Takei. Oh
Yeah.
my. That's George Takei. That's him. But I
Well
can
done.
only do that
Brilliant.
because I've heard it. I can't
Yeah.
recreate it. I can say or copy what I have heard, but I cannot
Right.
repeat like their own dialect. I couldn't just break into Shakespeare as George Takei. It would sound awful.
Right. Yeah, no, that's where it takes the work of literally. That there's an amazing thing called the Idea Archive, which is, I don't know exactly what it stands for, IDEA, something directory of accents, and you can listen to an English and sort of a particular piece of prose that they do in every single English accent around the world. So you look up the country you want, you look up the area you want, and there will be someone, bless them, who's gone and bothered recording this whole thing. And it contains all of the different sounds in this piece of text about a rainbow or something. And then you can literally listen to it and then apply the sounds to whatever text you want, because you have every single sound there is in it. It's really clever.
It's weird to see how the impact of technology has improved some things and made other things
Mhm.
worse. It seems like in a lot of life, like communicative skills, it's kind of made it very difficult because people just have lost communication. It seems like now we just revert to like a 3-word text. But then, like what you just said about like an audio log where people can log on and see people voiced certain things that can give you maybe insight into how to create your own. That is
Yeah,
amazing for the craft of voice acting, because what was voice acting back in the day? You had to go and get studio time. Now everyone's got a studio in their home.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And actually, something that I found, and it's maybe the same with you, with the podcasting community, certainly the audio drama one it's, I mean, it is a real community, to the point where people that I've met there, they came to my wedding, 2 of them. And, we've really bonded because it's possible to meet so many people, from all around the globe. Um,
There's if
uh,
and buts on that. Mostly, I think the audio drama is still a very new community. Like you said, blossoming. It's
yeah,
so new that not everyone is in a competition. There might be some
yeah,
people that think of it as like a competition type thing, like you want to be number one. The podcast community is way too soaked in that
really.
now it's so big that everyone's got a podcast. My UPS guy has a podcast. It's this whole idea of now it's like, I want to get your followers. It's all about it's not about the fun of the craft anymore. People want to turn it
No,
into a career. People go, I
yeah,
don't want to be on your show because it's not serious. It's like, it can be. I mean, I do this for fun. I don't want to turn this into anything else besides just meeting awesome people like yourself. Like there's just that's what it is. But that's what's weird is when something grows too big, the power of it just corrupts and you lose the aspect of why we started it in the first place. I mean, it falls on the idea of people forever have thought, you know, if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, people are trying to find this new thing that they love, podcasting, and turn it into work. And it's like, it doesn't always work out that way. I mean, the top podcasters in the world were on TV shows or famous movies or something. So you can work at it, but don't expect you to be the next Joe Rogan.
yeah, no, exactly. Actually, no, there is an element of that now. It's very different from how it was, back, say, even 5 or 6 years ago, and definitely 10 years ago. It was completely different. It was purely, there were some people they did have radio shows, and so they were in it, and they were doing it professionally from the off. They were doing it in theatres and presenting it that way. But most people were doing it as a hobby, for fun, for the joy of it. And it has now. It's a very complicated thing. Some things are paid, some things aren't, and um, it's it's, yeah, it's complicated. And I can see, yeah, podcasting's huge
I look
with
at
non-fiction.
I look at it like a kind of like a rose, and then like
Mhm.
the rose from Beauty and the Beast. We'll pick the my least favorite Disney movie of all time. But it's like in a jar.
Uh-huh.
Imagine like, that thing is it might stay the same, but the leaves kept falling off towards the end of the movie. That's what it turns into. It's like you start off with this amazing thing of like it's gonna blossom into something beautiful. Then when it does blossom into something beautiful, then you got all the people that want to sponsor it. And then once they start sponsoring it or once they start controlling your show, then you're losing control. Then it turns into like this decrepit thing where I'm like, you just gotta do it and just be happy you got a listener. Be happy that you're creating content. People, I never thought in a million years anybody would ever want to hear me talk. And then now I have a couple people that do. So it's like, I enjoyed that aspect of things. I like talking to people like yourself, meeting someone I would have never came across if it wasn't for
Yeah,
this thing. And that's the fun stuff of it. It always doesn't have to be about money all the time. I don't want people's
exactly.
faces in my pockets. That's terrible.
Yeah, no, that's a nice analogy. Yeah, it's no, absolutely. And someone said, which I thought was really good. They said, you know what? If you hired out a local studio theatre with, say, 80 seats in it, 100 seats, if you half filled that theatre by putting something on, you'd be fairly happy. Those people have bothered to come and listen. Well, with podcasting, it's no different, and people are sort of after hundreds and thousands and whatever of listeners. But actually, if you took each one of those listeners and sat them down, that's lovely that that many people are actually listening to, you know, having more than one person just go, oh, don't shut up, you know, is nice.
It's just weird when the number comes in where it says followers. I think we shouldn't have that because
Mm,
it gets so weird when you start getting so encapsulated by it that you're like, oh my God, I lost a follower. Oh my God, I got to get more. It's like this never ending goal of like, it's like hoarding. And it's like, it's really weird how that like hits a certain niche in our personalities that's what we want. It's like attention or fame. And I'm like, I think it would be way easier if we just did something because we wanted to do it rather than we just want to be famous or something. It's so hard to like a lot of people like yourself that I meet, they do it because they love it. They do it
yeah,
because they enjoy what they do. It's a great way. I mean, honestly, impressions, voices, all these types of things, being able to narrate stuff, people don't understand how much that is impacted into at least the United States, into our societies, into commercials. You wouldn't be able to see that amazing commercial where like the person's like, my name's Jen and I suffer from incontinence. Well, Jen takes Valvax and Valvax is able to clog her up at any moment in her life. And you're like, there you go. Like that commercial would be so boring if it was something else. If it was like, you know, there's these things we don't really notice about that is infused with voiceovers, infused in, now it's hitting this whole another avenue where a kid on a school bus, instead of, you know, turning in and listening to a song again, he can listen to a podcast or he can listen to an audio drama and then have an amazing time of something he's not able to understand being told to him rather than him reading it himself.
yeah. And I think you're right about, for me personally, whenever I'm writing, I turn everything on. You know, I cannot, the few times that I've got a bit down have been the only times when I've looked up from my furrow, you know, and looked around and gone, oh my goodness, they're doing really well, or they're doing, you know, and then you suddenly start feeling insecure and like, what am I doing something wrong? And it's only happened a few times because I love to be in that furrow, doing my own stuff, working on what you love. And I do think comparing yourself to other people, it's the death of creativity. You know, I don't know if you find a similar thing with your creating and your podcasting.
I look at there's so many influences that people go down to, and there's so many influences in the world that can change your creativity. Well, when does the line get drawn of where does your creativity, how much of it is actually yours? You know, a lot of stuff gets influenced into us and told of what we had, and then it's like, what could have been? What could have been this if it wasn't something that it is now? What could it have been? Could have been different. My original idea was doing ASMR into a microphone where I would eat different brands of cereal and just no milk, just eating dry cereal into a microphone for 15 minutes. Probably would have got me way farther than this podcast has gotten me. But it's the idea of like, oh, well, I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to learn stories. I worked at, or volunteered, I should say, for, it was a school thing. So it wasn't like I was going out of my way to help people. It was, I had to do it. So I went to an old person's home and I would sit there and listen to these amazing stories. And I was like, wait a minute, you survived the Holocaust? Like, what was that like? And then you start realizing that, okay, I can't read a book, but people are their own history books. So you can get the insight from their perspective to enhance your own. And then it just grew from that. And I wouldn't take it back. I mean, I've learned so much doing this thing, much as you probably learned through doing your audio drama, of at least the accents you can nail down, how many are in your wheelhouse. But you come across a close bond and good times that get spent. And what's a better way to live a life than having fun?
Absolutely. Funnily enough, yeah, I had a similar experience when I first, while I was doing my degree, I worked through it, and I worked in bingo, and in that time,
Wait. Bingo, bingo?
yeah,
Like B-42? Bingo!
that's the one. Yeah,
Sorry,
I was
okay.
a bingo caller for years actually. Yeah, but very similarly, yeah, because I'd be going around, you know, chatting to the mainly elderly women, although there were quite a few men who went as well. But yeah, there were women in their 80s, 90s, and the stories really similar to you. It was kind of the lives they'd lived, you know, some of them had quite racy lives, and then they kind of, you know, and it really, I had the same sort of thing, that people are just full of the most incredible experiences. And
You're sitting there like, go back to that time you were in the war. Hang on, I got 5 across over here. I need to cross this off.
oh, you know what, they were like that. They were absolutely, the only way we could get them out for a fire drill, we would actually literally have to take their handbags off them and walk the handbags to the doors, and then they would get up and they, give me back my bag. And that was the only way we could clear them out of the hole, because they wouldn't go even with the fire alarm going. They'd be like, no, I just need 49 and I can do it.
I swear, look, my buddy's stepdad just said this the other day. He was like, I wish I could be like you guys, just lounge around watching football. And I'm like, bro, you're fucking retired. Like, what do you have to do? He's like, I got to build this shit out back. I was like, no, you don't. You just want to. So it's like you can easily lie down. That's your whole life now, is just doing whatever you want to do. And you don't have to do anything else. And he's like, you're right. And I was like, yeah. So don't yell at us for having one day off and watching football. But it's that thing. It's like, I wish I could do that, where I could just hook into something like cutting the grass, doing something where people are like, to me, it sounds monotoning, but it's amazing to see how people take it and it's like their life. And I'm like, good on you, mate. Like, I got so much stuff up in here that I can't even focus on my own life. I'm trying to figure out, I got work this day, this day, this, and it's all this other stuff going on. And all you have to do is cut the grass.
But just think, when you do retire, presumably you'll be doing your retirement podcast. You'll be able to spend all day just doing podcasts. It'd be
I'm
great.
doing this in my 60s. That's going to be a problem. Pulling out my teeth. Hang on a second, Sonny. What did you say about pooping? That's like my whole podcast.
No, you can do one about cutting the grass. It'd be great.
Yeah. I would have talked to the whole entire lawn. I bet you there's a lawn mowing community. I bet you. I've talked to them all. I've talked to audio drama communities, pizza communities, hot sauce communities, ice cream communities. You name it, I've talked to them. But there's only 2 people in the world that I have not talked to.
Uh-huh.
A mime and a clog maker. I've been trying to get a clog maker for a really long time, but I haven't been able to talk. I just like to see how that even becomes a thing.
Wow, that would be fascinating, actually. I think it's quite, you know, it's quite skilled, isn't it? Because they have to carve inside just to get it. They're meant to be precise for every single foot.
That's what I'm saying. I've talked to them all. I've talked to a brothel keeper. I'm friends with a Power Ranger. I don't know what else in life I want but talking to a clog maker. Like, there's just this thing where it's like, if you start an adventure, if you start something that you really want to do just for fun and keep it as for fun, it grows into something you never thought in your wildest dreams would ever get you anything. And I'm pretty sure you probably know that with the audio drama. You're looking at it like, I never thought I would get this far with it. It was just an idea. Next thing you know, a couple of years later, you're falling into this thing where it's like, wow, I've watched it grow so much. It's got to be an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was, you know, because I'd originally wanted to go into theatre. That was what I trained for, and that was what I was going to do. But things, you know, life intervened and things happened. And this has been, you know, after having a family, this has just been a route into drama again that I never thought would exist, you know? It's just been magic. I mean, really genuinely magical and life-changing for me.
From when you were a kid, did you ever think that this would be a possibility, that the world would get to this form of using your voice so easily online to be able to communicate or even be able to perform?
No. I mean, yeah, oh my goodness, 10-year-old me would just be, I think, overwhelmed. I wouldn't want to tell 10-year-old me, because I think 10-year-old me would get far too excited and expect far too much. So, you know, it's quite nice that I was a bit older when I came to it.
Do you find it's easier for you to do voiceovers just because, like you said, you wanted to do theater, right? So
Yeah.
the aspect of getting up on stage might be scary. So it's easier to be yourself or let loose when you're behind a microphone, or you're able to just use your voice. Because, like,
Yeah.
if you ever see voice actors talk or voice actors do an impression or something, their voice, they're very weird with the faces. And it's like, but they don't ever show that. But if you ever watch like them in cartoons or famous actors in cartoons and they're seeing their voices, their movements are so weird. Like, that's strange even for Chris Pratt. But it's like, it's because they're not going to show the face. So they can act, they can be themselves, they can release, which I feel like you get a way better act out of.
That's true. I mean, I think it is a very, very different thing. And definitely when I first came to it, I first came to it from a sort of, theatre thing. So you project, you're blowing the microphone and everything. And then it's only like then when you really get to know it's a different set of techniques, voice acting, because you're right in people's ears. And so it's very, sorry, and I apologize, I probably did blow it then. You might want to take that bit down. And it's much more intimate thing, so you have to be really careful because you don't want to be too overly intense in someone's head.
Only in the certain moments, right? Like if somebody's getting stabbed, you can't just have your soft, sweet voice be like, and then he was stabbed, and as his guts came piling out onto the floor. That would be like a true crime podcast, or it's like, this person's a psycho. He's just, his inner voice is narrating in his head, and it's so soft and sweet. Like, I bet Morgan Freeman's inner voice is probably like the loudest, most obnoxious person in the world.
That's it. It's like the portrait of Dorian Gray.
Well, if you want, please promote the audio drama where people can find it at, like what it's called, where people can see it. I'll make sure I link it all in the description, but I want people listening here at the end to be able to find it when they can.
Thank you very much. It's Dashing Onions audio. We only do very little ones. They're only about 15 minutes long each. We're not as productive as you.
Is that why it's called Dashing Onions? Because the onions are small? Or they make you cry?
No, it's well, yeah, actually, maybe. It's from an acting friend. I was trying to find a name for it, and he's a gardener. And I said, what have you put in this year? Oh, I've put in some beans and tomato. And he said, an Egyptian walking onions. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And these onions, they're like spring onions. So you have like the bulb at the bottom, and then apparently they go right up, and then they create another little bulb at the top, which flowers. And then it gets so heavy that it falls over into a kind of rainbow and then plants itself, and then it springs up another little bulb at the top. And so they literally walk along the ground. And I thought, oh wow, that's really cool because they're kind of adapting. And I thought, yeah, walking onions would be walk. And then I thought walking's a bit sedate, although actually I probably would actually sum up my productivity with it. But I thought dashing was a bit more movement orientated because I wanted it to be a bit more exciting.
Dashing sounds like you're adding a dash of something to something.
Exactly. Or you can be smashing them against a wall, or they could be dashing as in kind of, good looking. So I thought, yeah, it's got a few meanings.
I never trust onions because I don't trust anything that makes you cry. I'm just saying. That's not a vegetable you want. Is it even a vegetable? I wouldn't call it a fruit.
Has an onion let you down?
Couple of times. There's been some rough moments. I tear up when I get into a grocery store. I was like, I haven't even got you yet.
So that rules out chilies as well, I guess, for you.
I'm a big chili fanatic.
Yeah.
I honestly, I eat the same bland food every single day, and I'm okay with that. I don't mind, I'm a cheap guy, can of tuna, and I'll be all right. Maybe frozen animal crackers. I've been eating those. Yo, that changes the game. Like, I had so many people go, dude, that's a high food. That's like if you're stoned, you're eating frozen animal crackers. I'm like, no, dude, just try it. They have it figured out because it's pretty good.
What are animal crackers? Are they kind of like
They're little crackers in the shape of animals?
The biscuit ones with chocolate on one side?
No, there's no chocolate at all. It's just a regular graham cracker cookie, and it's just in the shape of an animal. There's lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
My. Oh, we're missing out on that over here.
There's that, and then I like saltines. But never trust a food that when it goes stale, it tastes exactly the same. What is that? I don't know what that is. There's like no flavor additives.
It's just pure additives
I have
and
a
preservatives.
code of ethics, and my code of ethics are fallen on the same lines my grandfather has always instilled in me his knowledge. He said, never trust a man with an eye patch and never trust a guy named Greg. I don't know what that meant, but I've taken that into my life and it's never steered me wrong.
Fantastic. I was always told never trust a man who wears a ring on a pinky finger.
Never trust a person that wears more than one ring.
Mm-hmm.
You ever
That's a
see
good
those
one too.
guys? I've seen people with like 4 different rings on. I'm like, what are you doing? What game are we playing here? Did you run into a gumball machine and then you got a whole bunch of rings? It doesn't make any sense. And that has
Well,
been Fee. I like that name. Fee or Fiona?
uh, it's weird. I always kept it as Fiona. And then someone called me Fee. It was literally just a few years ago. And I'd always hated Fee because of Fifi kind of thing, you know, but like a dog or a poodle. But then I just, for one reason, because I liked this person who called me Fee for the first time, I was like, oh, I'll accept that. So yeah, I've accepted Fee now as well.
It's a gentle name for a gentle voice.
Oh, thank you very much.
Like if your name was Butch, we would have a big problem.
We would. And at least I'm not called Greg.
Yeah, never trust a Greg.